Here we go. Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. We're live right here on Chat Sports. Chase Sr. here with you. It is an awesome Wednesday, January 29th. We have a lot to talk about here on the show. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And here's what we have coming up on tap on today's Niners Report. Two big decisions await on two team captains for San Francisco. What will the Niners do with the couple of looming contractual decisions? Niners draft targets. We'll take a look at Mel Kiper's recent mock. Who does he have going to San Francisco? And I have three Niners cut candidates who I want to talk about if the Niners want to save some money on the salary cap going into free agency. We'll also be doing a mailbag, so start getting those questions in right now. Use the hashtag 49ers. Or send in a super chat. Already 200 people watching live. As people get that notification, they start to pile into the show. When they see that we're live here on YouTube, let's get the comment section going. We're coming to you from Studio H in the Chat Sports Studios. But one of my favorite things about hosting this show is seeing where everybody else is at. So where are you watching from? Let us know in the chat. We'll start to give you some shout-outs here. Steve Cass, DeStoic, Kurt Johnson, John Freeman, Martin, Wet Noodle, Cardi Flames, Luigi, Peyton, all in the chat right now. As far as locations go, I'm seeing Michigan, Spokane, Washington, Georgia, and Katy, Texas, San Francisco, Reno, Nevada, Boston as well. And how about we go international? Hello from London, England, coming in from Javid. I always like to believe this is a global show right here on YouTube covering the Niners. We have two sponsors making our live program possible here today. First up, our friends at Game Time. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with our friends at Game Time. And right now, when you download the app, you create an account, and you use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, you get $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. They have flash deals and zone deals. And thanks to Game Time Picks, curation makes it easier to find the best seats without having to go through thousands of tickets. Again, that's $20 off when you use the code CHATSPORTS. How about our friends at Prize Picks? More than 10 million active members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. There is one football game remaining until the 2025 season. Crazy to believe that there's only the Super Bowl left. Don't miss out on the action with Prize Picks. Head to prizepicks.com/CLNS. You can win up to 1,000 times your money. And right now, when you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. We're going to be doing a mailbag as well, so get involved. Get those questions in. If you have a hot take, relay that as well. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. I want to capitalize on this audience here. 250 people watching live. More people will come in, but help us out. If you want some more members of the faithful to hang out here and watch the show, I want everybody tuned in to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. The more likes that we get, the more people who find the stream, so we appreciate your help. If you simply hit that thumbs up icon, I think that we should be able to get to 100 likes in the next 20 seconds. So if you're ready to talk Niners, ready to start the show, hit that thumbs up icon right now. Want to start off with talking about some big decisions that await for San Francisco. That is going to be segment number one. We'll do some draft talk. We'll talk some cut candidates, and then we'll open up the floor and we'll take all of your questions. So it's Chip and Chase here with the Niner Gang, and the official show starts right now. Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. I am your host, Jay Sr. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And coming up, a lot to get to. Could tight end George Kittle get a contract extension this offseason? If the Niners do not want to pay him and they want him to play out the remainder of his deal, final year coming up here in 2025 before he's set to be a free agent, could the Niners draft a tight end with pick number 11? We're going to talk about the future of Fred Warner, and one Niners rookie from the 2024 draft class was awesome in his debut season in the National Football League. Let's start off with George Kittle. A big offseason question mark for San Francisco. Will the Niners sign George Kittle to a contract extension this offseason? 2025 is the final year of his deal after he had signed that 5-year, $75 million contract a few off seasons ago. He has a cap hit in 2025 of $22 million, a base salary of $14 plus. His career earnings sitting pretty, $62.5 million. And Kittle is going to turn 32 years old next November, but he's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he is still one of the top tight ends in the game. And in the course of this franchise's history, he's the number one tight end who I think has ever put on a Niners uniform. And on top of that, heartbeat and leader of this team, plays his tail off every single week. So fun to watch him pancake dudes in the block game, but then pick up yards after the catch and breaking tackles. He's emerged as a really good option and weapon for Brock Purdy. Really good in the red zone as well. And he's really showing no signs of slowing down. And he has career-long Niner written all over him. But from the Niners' standpoint, this roster is getting a little bit older and a little bit expensive. So do you want to give a contract extension to a player who's starting to get a little bit long in the tooth? And do you want to pay an aging tight end top dollar? Here's my thing with tight ends. They can play and produce in the NFL for a very long time. And if the Niners sign Brock Purdy to a contract extension, they should also lock up George Kittle because he's been one of the top options for Purdy in the pass game. And they have this really good on-field kinship that I think can continue to be dominant for the foreseeable future. Since Purdy became the team's starting quarterback in 2022, George Kittle has 21 receiving touchdowns. And in his last 4 years, you look at the production that he's been able to put up, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He was a first-team All-Pro in 2023. 90 targets, 65 catches, 1,020 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Honestly, he may have been better in 2024 with one fewer game played. Targets went up by 4, but receptions went up by 13, and the yards receiving went up. The touchdowns went up to 8 as well. And when Purdy replaced Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance in 2022, Kittle went on a tear for the final quarter of the season. I think he had 7 touchdowns once Purdy was inserted as the team's starting quarterback, 11 for the season. Really good production right there. When you take a gander at the highest paid tight ends per year in the National Football League, what will Kittle demand? That's a big question that obviously plays a role into the Niners' decision of whether or not to pay him or let him play out the remainder of his contract. Travis Kelce is making $17.1 million per year. TJ Hawkinson at $16.5. I think George Kittle at $14.25 right now is better than both of those players right now from a production and eye test standpoint. So is he going to want more than Travis Kelce to become the highest paid tight end in the National Football League? So that's what I wonder if these contract negotiations get going. How much will Kittle ask for, or will he be content with making something in that neighborhood of $13 to $15 million, which is still great compensation to allow the Niners to build up the rest of their team? Today's poll question is this. It'll also be the pinned comment on today's show. Should the Niners extend Kittle this offseason? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Share your feelings with me. I've thrown this out there on X a few times, and I started talking about this a couple of months ago. If the Niners do not want to pay George Kittle, and they're sitting there at number 11 overall, and their draft strategy is to go best player available, can they pass up on Penn State tight end Tyler Warren, who has the size of George Kittle, the yak and tackle breaking ability of George Kittle? Not quite the blocker that Kittle is, but more positional versatility. He can line up in the regular tight end spot, flank to the tackle. He can line up as a slot receiver. He's lined up out wide. He's played H-back. He's been under center as a quarterback. He's been in the shotgun in wildcat formations. He can play H-back, fullback as well. This dude is a freak. He can go up and get it. He moves and looks like Gronk, has the size of George Kittle, and when he gets rumbling, look out. And look out for the Niners to show some interest in the all-world great prospect that is Tyler Warren out of Penn State. It is a pretty solid draft class at the tight end spot. I think Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland out of Michigan could go in the first round. Harold Fannin Jr. is a good tight end out of Bowling Green. Gunnar Helm made some really nice plays this year for Texas. And then there's Elijah Arroyo, who's more of that vertical seam-stretching tight end, but some teams are worried about a knee injury that he suffered a couple of years ago. Our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Game Time. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Take the guesswork out of buy tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, and when you do that, CHATSPORTS, you get $20 off. Terms apply, first purchase only. Game Time specializes in last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed because prices drop as the event gets closer. Super Bowl is coming up. If you're going to travel to New Orleans, utilize the Game Time app. Also, thanks to Game Time Picks, curation makes it easier to find the best seats for the events that you want to go to. Instead of having to sort through thousands of tickets, they just give you the best ones. It's not just an app for sporting events. You can go to concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and a whole lot more. Good Western Conference rivalry. Phoenix Suns, Golden State Warriors. If you're watching the show from the Bay Area, you want to catch the dub, Steph Curry on the floor, you can do so. And you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. So we talked about George Kittle. Now, what is the future of All-Pro linebacker Fred Warner? Will the Niners restructure his deal this offseason, or will they sign him to a contract extension? The Niners will have somewhere in the neighborhood of $38 to $43 million in cap space this offseason. Warner's contract doesn't void until 2027. He'll be an unrestricted free agent in 2027, but he has no more guaranteed money left on his contract. And we've seen these financial gymnastics happen before with the player like Christian McCaffrey, with others, where if there aren't guaranteed dollars remaining, the Niners can create cap space by signing players to contract extensions or restructuring their contracts. And take a look at these numbers here. This would be the money saved with the Fred Warner restructure. The Niners in 2025 would save $12.3 million. In 2026, they would save just under $11 million. And in 2027, they would save more than $8 million. Fred Warner, like George Kittle, is a straight-up Niners legend who, like Kittle, is still playing at an elite level. 3 straight first-team All-Pros, 4 total, and I think like Kittle as well, he is a future Hall of Famer. And he has registered such great numbers throughout his career. He has missed 1 game in his entire career as well, which is very impressive considering he's had that durability despite the Niners making it so deep into the playoffs. And throughout his career, Fred Warner has played in 4 NFC Championship games and 2 Super Bowls. He's a lock to have more than 100 tackles every year. He's a lock to be so good in coverage and come through with some pass breakups and defend running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. And his coverage grade continues to put the clamps on opposing players. The Niners haven't used him as a blitzer a lot, but he can certainly do that. Hopefully Robert Saleh uses and utilizes Fred Warner in that regard. And then the peanut punch, game-changing plays where he's able to force fumbles, generate turnovers. He is a once-in-a-generation type of player and a very, very special leader. Restructuring that deal does seem like a no-brainer, but you know what I would do if I were the Niners? I would just give him a contract extension. He's in his late 20s. You can play linebacker at a very high level for a long time. I would just reward him with the contract extension. He played after suffering that broken ankle in week 4 the rest of the season on that injury. And prior to that injury, he was still great after it, but before that, he was on his way to potentially becoming Defensive Player of the Year, and I don't think he is showing signs of decline either. I'll round out this segment with this. How about what Renardo Green was able to do in 2024? And looking ahead to April's 2025 NFL draft, if the Niners can repeat what they did in 2024 and crush this draft, it'll do this organization wonders from a player development, depth, and overall roster standpoint. And the pressure's on for San Francisco to do well in the 2025 draft. And hopefully they can work off the momentum of what they accomplished in 2024 by picking players like Renardo Green. Second-round pick out of Florida State. I thought it was kind of a reach at the time. And then I watched him play and I said, this kid has instincts. This kid has toughness. He does a really good job in coverage. He's not afraid to play the run either. He was 12th in pass breakups among all cornerbacks this year, according to Sports Info Solutions. He only allowed a completion rate when targeted of 52%. If there is an area of improvement for Green going into his sophomore year, he did allow 20-plus yard catches in 6 games that he played this season. So the long ball, little bit of a weakness, but it's not like that Niners defense was the most well-coached unit. And I think that Robert Saleh is going to be able to maximize and continue the development for a player like Renardo Green. He also had a Pro Football Focus coverage grade of 74.3. That was 27th among 223 corners. And a part of my team building philosophy, any organization has to get a quarterback. They have to build the offensive line and the defensive line. That's where team building starts for me. And then you start to build to the outside. And after quarterback, offensive line, and defensive line, you have to find some stud cornerbacks, especially in a pass-happy era with a lot of the quarterback talent that we see. And the Niners have 2 really good young ones, Indiamador Lenore and Renardo Green, and that's a good place to be. Be sure to give me a follow on social media. In addition to all of the content that I put up here on YouTube, I put up so much content on my social media pages at Chase_Senior on X and Instagram. So you're watching the 49ers Report live on this Wednesday, January 29th. More than 400 people hanging out, only 93 likes. If you're enjoying the show, please make sure you hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. My boy Edward Willis is in the chat. What's up, Toby? How you doing? And coming up here next, Niners draft targets as part of Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah's mock. And I think a lot of people are going to like the players that Kiper and Jeremiah mocked to San Francisco. We'll be doing a mailbag segment number 4, by the way, so use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. In the meantime, I'm taking a look at the chat. Leroy Hopkins, George Kittle, he's our version of Gronkowski or Kelsey. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Gronkowski and Kelsey, great tight ends for New England and Kansas City. George Kittle's been that for San Francisco. Samuel Crosby saying, what's up? What's up, man? Steve Cass, too early to say the 2024 draft is great. Look, Renardo Green is a player. Dominic Pooney's a player. Ricky Pearsall showed some signs late. I'm a believer in Jacob Cowing. Malik Mustafa, I think he's going to be a starting safety for your team. And so out of that draft, so far, Pearsall starter, Green starter, Pooney starter, Mustafa a starter. It's a pretty good draft right there. Yeah. David Delgado, yo Chase, Kittle extension and draft a kid from Penn State. Dude, I literally just talked about that. That was a part of the segment if you want to scroll back a little bit, but good stuff. Mr. Block Ice, sorry for not voting on who to win the Super Bowl, but I don't care. Speaking of that, that is our poll question. Who you got in Super Bowl 59? 77% Eagles, 23% Chiefs. Interesting. On 317 votes. Continue to get your votes in over there. All right, let's move forward on segment number 2. Yeah. What do we got? Yeah. And you don't have to do reveal. Yeah. You can just go, what, they went player 4. So, up. Yeah, that works. All right, we'll do some draft talk coming up here. I've also had a lot of fun seeing these Senior Bowl updates, East-West Shrine Bowl updates as well, to see which prospects are climbing up draft boards, which prospects are falling down draft boards. Speaking of the draft, let's do some draft talk here in a moment. Here we go. Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Senior. Coming up here on the show, if you want the Niners to improve the offensive line this offseason, in particular in the 2025 NFL Draft, Mel Kiper's latest mock draft is for you. And you're going to come away from that saying, that's good news for San Francisco if they go that way. Also on the show, we're going to take a look at who Daniel Jeremiah has going to the Niners as well. And I think you're going to like that individual player, or at least that idea as well. If you want more draft coverage, hit that subscribe button right here on the Niners Report for daily shows, news, updates, rumors, reports. Anytime I'm in front of this camera on this microphone and I'm doing a show on the Niners Report, I want it to be as insightful, informative, entertaining, thought-provoking as possible, and I always want you to have a voice. So let's take a look at Mel Kiper's most recent NFL mock draft. Some surprises here. He has Cam Ward, the Miami quarterback, going to the Tennessee Titans with the number 1 overall pick. If I were the Titans, I don't think I'm taking a quarterback in this class. I think I'm taking Abdul Carter, number 1. But Mel Kiper has Cam Ward going number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. Travis Hunter, the athlete out of Colorado who can play wide receiver and cornerback, going to the Cleveland Browns at number 2. Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback out of Colorado, going to the New York Giants. Now, in one of Kiper's mocks, he did have Calvin Banks going to the New England Patriots, but for the purpose of today's show, he also has Banks going to the Niners in another mock. So that's also what we're going to talk about here today. He has Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan, going to the Jaguars at number 5. Tet McMillan, a Drake London type of wide receiver, going to the Las Vegas Raiders at number 6. Mason Graham, a player who I love, to the New York Jets at number 7. Abdul Carter, edge rusher out of Penn State, to the Carolina Panthers at number 8. He's the favorite player that I have in this Niners draft class. Mykel Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia, number 9 to the New Orleans Saints. James Pierce, number 10 to the Chicago Bears, edge rusher out of Tennessee. Will Campbell, the offensive tackle out of LSU, to the Niners at number 11. And Ashton Jeanty, number 12, the running back out of Boise State, to the Dallas Cowboys, which would be a fascinating pick. And there's no doubt that the Cowboys need to get better on the ground. So that was one of Mel Kiper's earlier mock drafts. His most recent mock draft, he shuffled it up a little bit. And I think if you're a Niner fan, you'd be cool and content with Will Campbell going to the Niners. He's a really good offensive tackle out of LSU, good athlete, good scheme of fit, quick feet, and I think his game translates right away. But in the other Mel Kiper mock draft, he has Kelvin Banks dropping to the Niners. So in this particular mock that we showed you, had him going earlier to New England. In his most recent mock draft, has Kelvin Banks going to San Francisco. And let me tell you this. If the Niners come away with Kelvin Banks, that's a huge win. I mean, that's a player who Mel Kiper thinks could go in the top 5 or at least has some top 5 talent. But we know that this offseason, the Niners have to improve the offensive line. And they have to get better in the trenches. And right tackle is a huge position where they can do that on top of center and left guard. And the thought process here with Kelvin Banks out of Texas, Steve Sarkisian runs a lot of similar Kyle Shanahan schematic plays and designs. So Banks would be a good scheme fit. Very experienced player over the last 3 years. The production has been there. What he's done on tape has been very impressive. He had one bad game against Georgia 2 years ago, but the consistency has been there. And Trent Williams is getting older, right? So Kelvin Banks, you could draft him to play right tackle now, left tackle later. And I think that's a pretty good plan for San Francisco. Here's what Mel Kiper had to say about Banks in his most recent mock. Ton of experience, having started 42 games over his college career, and he allowed only 3 sacks over that time. I'm curious to see his combine measurements. Height might be a question mark if he's 6'3" or shorter. He has the movement traits and the strength to seal off the edge and pass protection The Niners still have Trent Williams locking it down on the left side for 2 more years, but he'll be 37 at the start of next year, and it's time to start planning for the future. Plus, Banks could help on the right side for now, where the Niners have missed Mike McGlinchey, who signed with the Denver Broncos 2 years ago. I think that's a little bit of a reach. I don't think that Mike McGlinchey has been that much better than a player like Colton McKivitz, and Mike McGlinchey got a bag. I think he's making like $15, $18 million. And so from a financial standpoint, given the player that McGlinchey is, the Niners' decision to let him go was a smart move, but Colton McKivitz hasn't been good enough. And that's why we're talking about Kelvin Banks here as being a player who can be good enough. 6'4", 320, really good movement skills. He has the frame to play offensive tackle. Some evaluators think that maybe he will be a guard at the next level. Needs to refine his hands a little bit, but he is very athletic out in space. Good feet on the run and pass sets. He can lean sometimes in pass pro, leading to him getting uprooted or being unbalanced. And he's a player with a lot of pedigree. 5-star recruit from Humble, Texas. In 2024, he had an overall Pro Football Focus grade of 86. He played in 15 games, did not play in the SEC championship game, and then came back for the college football playoff, registered 935 snaps, only gave up 1 sack, 2 hits, and 7 hurries. And so I think the plan should be for the Niners, if they draft a player like Banks, if he falls to San Francisco, you start him at right tackle over Colton McKivitz, then he takes over for Trent Williams once Trent Williams decides to retire, and then you're better at right tackle, you have Dominic Pooney at right guard, and then what's left? Still need to get a center, in my opinion. Still need to get a left guard. Maybe you can draft the left guard. Maybe you can sign a center like Drew Dahlman in NFL free agency. Really good player for the Atlanta Falcons, whose dad actually played for the Niners back in the day. So let me know, which position do you want to see the Niners target in the NFL draft? Join the conversation down below in the comment section right now. We'll do some more draft talk here in a second, but first, today's Niners Report, sponsored by our friends at Prize Picks, the only place to play daily fantasy sports and the largest independently run daily fantasy sports app in North America. They have more than 10 million active members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings, and it's daily fantasy sports made easy. There is 1 football game left for the 2024 season. Crazy to believe. And don't miss out on the action with our friends at Prize Picks. You pick 2 or more players, you choose more or less on their projected stats, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money. Right now, when you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And Prize Picks always has great specials, like the big game free pick, Patrick Mahomes projection discount. All he has to do is throw for more than a half passing yard. And so that's an easy win. And on top of that, how about Saquon Barkley just finding the end zone against Kansas City? More than a half rushing and receiving touchdown. Pick more, pick less. Run your game with Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. I'll put that link down below in the comment section and in the description of today's Niners Report. All right, so we uncovered a couple of Mel Kiper mock drafts a little bit earlier. Let's go to Daniel Jeremiah's most recent mock. You have Mel Kiper, ESPN draft expert, and then Daniel Jeremiah, who does a terrific job for the NFL Network. He also goes offensive line for the Niners, but a different player. Missouri offensive tackle guard Armand Membou. And Armand Membou might be one of the most pro-ready offensive linemen in this draft class. But like Kelvin Banks, the NFL Combine is going to determine a lot. Banks and Membou, are they going to play tackles or are they going to slide inside? Here's what Daniel Jeremiah had to say about him. Membou is the most technically sound offensive lineman in this class. He reminds me of Elijah Vera Tucker when he entered the league. Membou will be an exceptional guard who can also play tackle if needed. Again, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that the Niners need a guard as well. Membou in 2024, overall Pro Football Focus grade nearly perfect, 90.4. 12 games played this year, 827 snaps, no sacks given up, no hits either, but 9 hurries. And all of his snaps pretty much coming at right tackle, 801 of them. 6'3", 320, a multi-year starter in the SEC. He is very powerful, has a very strong anchor, and he has scheme and positional versatility. And I think that's very valuable when you project what his future is going to be in the NFL. If he can't play tackle, you know that with Dominic Pooney and Armand Membu, you have potentially 2 really good guards for the next 7 to 10 years. Then you get center and right tackle right, and you can start to mash in the trenches along the offensive line if San Francisco can prioritize that position. And look, if he can play tackle, even better, because that's even more of an important position as compared to guard. But all 5 of them, the Niners have to take it more seriously, especially if they pay Brock Purdy. Pick an offensive lineman who you want the Niners to draft, and looking at these 2 mocks, KB for Kelvin Banks, AM for Armand Membu. Let me know down in the comment section right now, and thanks for watching the show. What are the people saying? Charles Lemp, Jake Brendel will be gone. I hope so. Jesse Rodriguez saying Membu. Chualor Membu. CRX saying Banks. Kevin Wilson, Paul Watson. Membu as well. A lot of people going Membu.
First super chat of the day, Lamonte
with the 5. Thank you, brother. We will still never win the big one with Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0 and banana hands. Kyle Shanahan will draft the kicker and a running back. Why is Moody still on the team? Trade Kyle Shanahan ASAP, please. Wow. Lamonte, I disagree. I think the Niners are capable of winning a Super Bowl with Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. Shoot, they nearly did it last year. If they didn't shoot themselves in the foot against a team where the margin for error is razor thin, Niners could have won that game. You can't play Kansas City, fumble on the opening drive when you're about to score, miss an extra point, fumble away a punt, intercept Patrick Mahomes, and not get any points when you took over in Chiefs territory. That and a whole lot more. Not blocking Chris Jones on a critical down of the game. If the Niners do those things, which were mistakes that should not happen in a game like that, they complete the quest for 6. And why is Jake Moody still on the team? Because the league year is not over, and teams are not releasing and cutting players yet. But at the very least, I do think that competition will be brought in for Jake Moody this offseason. It has to be. All right, let's move forward to segment number 3. Steve Cass, did special teams lose the Super Bowl? They weren't good on special teams, that's for damn sure. They gave up a big return, and they fumbled away a punt. And on the next play, after the Chiefs had not scored, Patrick Mahomes threw a touchdown pass. Also, if Dre Greenlaw doesn't get hurt, do they win? Possibly. Crazy Super Bowl, man. Crazy Super Bowl. And I think this one between the Eagles and the Chiefs is going to be very good as well. Sacred Intuition, bring back Juszczyk, in my opinion. We're about to talk about him. Tom Nelson, what do we think of Arroyo, the tight end out of Miami? Yeah, he's more of that like vertical seam stretching tight end as compared to Tyler Warren, who's like a Kittle and Gronk baby. If they were to have a baby. Antonio, we shut down the Chiefs' pre-Greenlaw injury. It's not a lie. It's not a lie. All right, segment number 3 coming up. Let's get to it. Coming up on today's San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports, my name is Chase Sr. A few big decisions await for General Manager John Lynch and Head Coach Kyle Shanahan, and as part of that, we are going to talk about some Niners cut candidates here on the show. Who's going to be on that list? Who could get cut, leading to the Niners being able to save money on the cap going into the offseason? Stay tuned for that. But first, our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Game Time. If you're going to the big game in New Orleans between the Eagles and the Chiefs, great city to party in and a great environment at the Superdome. Download the Game Time app, Create an account. Use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. Game Time specializes in last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed, where you get the best seats. Prices drop as the event gets closer. Thanks to Game Time Picks, curation makes it easier to find the best seats without having to go through thousands of options. Game Time will just hit you with the best options. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. They have flash deals and zone deals, the Game Time guarantee, where if you find a lower price on another app, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. For those of you living in the Bay Area, or if you're going to the Bay, if you want to watch a Golden State Warriors game at the Chase Center in San Francisco, plenty of tickets available. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. We appreciate them for making today's show possible. Let's set the table with this. According to Over the Cap, the 49ers right now have $41.5 million in cap space going into the offseason. San Francisco coming off a very disappointing 6-11 year in which they missed the playoffs for the first time since 2020, and they're going to need to tinker with the roster. And while they do have a decent amount of cap space, they can open up even more cap space by making a few roster moves. That includes restructuring contracts, signing players to contract extensions, trading players away, or cutting players. Which leads me to this. Cut candidate number one is a player who the Niners signed in free agency last offseason. That is Yetur Gross-Matos, the defensive end. Now, the Niners can save just under $8 million by designating him as a post-June 1 release. Gross-Matos, in his first year in a Niners uniform, played in just 34.5% of his snaps in 2024. He did have 4 sacks and 10 pressures. That was not bad production after missing time. He is also a player who can play defensive end or defensive tackle in that NASCAR package in front that Robert Saleh has helped to make famous. And when you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers for YTM in 2024, they weren't great. Overall PFF grade of 51.5, pass rush grade of 59.5, run defense grade of 46.6, and the Niners this offseason really trying to get better against the run. But look, he had 4 sacks and 21 pressures on 209 pass rush snaps, and all of those sacks came after he came off of injured reserve. And so going into this offseason, the Niners need to bulk up and add players at defensive end and defensive tackle. And I would think about drafting an edge or a defensive tackle with the 11th overall pick. And so I know that you could save some money here, but I would consider keeping Yetur Gross-Matos, see what he can do under Chris Kocurek, because we saw flashes of that, defensive tackle, edge, getting after the quarterback. And I want to see how Robert Saleh can maximize a player like this, and I'll be motivated going into the final year of his contract. Cut candidate number 2, a fan favorite, and a player who a lot of people do not want to see get cut. But if we're being realistic, he is on this list for a reason, because the Niners could move on this offseason. That is fullback Kyle Juszczyk. He is the highest paid fullback in the NFL. He's been a part of cost-cutting avenues and moves by the Niners before. He has a $6.5 million cap hit in 2025, and the Niners can save $4.6 million by cutting him. A $6.5 million cap hit for a fullback in 2025 is crazy. Because when you think about it in this way, if you signed an undrafted free agent, and teams oftentimes don't draft fullbacks, so you can bring in a really good fullback in this offense, you could add that player where he's making like $500,000. Instead, Juice has a cap hit of $6.5 million. And from a team building standpoint, I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to pay a lot of money to a fullback who really solely blocks. The Niners don't hand the football off to him all that much. when they do throw it his way, he does make big plays in the passing game, but those opportunities are few and far between. And yes, he's a great blocker, but also a lot, he's just that motion man. Now, he's one of Kyle Shanahan's guys, and in this scheme, he is utilized a lot as that lead blocker, and that's important for opening up some running lanes for this ground attack for San Francisco. But it's the price for me, considering if you signed another fullback as UDFA, if you brought in another fullback in free agency, you could have a player who maybe not is to the level of Kyle Juszczyk, but very similar, who serves the same role, and you could free up $5 million, so to speak. A really fun replacement option for Kyle Juszczyk is a player who I talked about a couple of weeks ago here on the show, and I mentioned how he could replace Juszczyk, and that's Arizona State running back Cam Skattebo. Went to Sacramento State, transferred to Arizona State, grew up in the Bay Area. Pretty sure he grew up as a Niner fan. This guy's an athletic freak, and he can do a lot of different things on the field. And you're unsure about Christian McCaffrey looking ahead to next year, too. He's not quite as big as Mike Allstott was in the early 2000s, but he runs like him, has a strong lower half like him, and is very balanced. He's not quick and twitchy with the patience to explosion like Christian McCaffrey is. He's a different player than that, but he's almost like a blend between Mike Allstott and Christian McCaffrey, and it's not because they're all white dudes. Skattebo against Texas in the college football playoff, 30 carries, 143 yards, 4.8 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. He also threw a 42-yard touchdown pass. He also had 8 catches for 99 yards, 12.4 yards per catch. That was against a Texas team that has NFL dudes all over the place. Skattebo can ball, and this would be a cost-cutting measure where you could replace Juice with Skattebo, and I think that he could be a really intriguing weapon for head coach Kyle Shanahan. Here's what Kyle Juszczyk had to say about his future. Hasn't been any discussion yet, but I am aware of the kind of situation that we have. There's a lot up in the air, and who's going to be here, who's not. Some contracts that need to be figured out, so I'm aware of that. I just hope it doesn't affect me. I want to win a ring. I want to win a ring here. But again, if I'm forced to do it somewhere else, I've still got so much football left in me. I still love the game so much. I'm still playing at a high level, and I know there are teams out there that can use me. And yeah, Kyle Juszczyk still is playing at a high level, and good for him if he wants to continue his career, if it's not with the Niners. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, by the way, as we continue to move forward on today's show, because whenever the Niners make a move, we talk about it right here on this program. So lock us in and hit that sub button. Cut candidate number 3 is Javon Hargrave. And the Niners already have plans to designate him as a post-June 1 release. John Lynch has talked openly about this, and during the season when they restructured his contract, the writing was kind of on the wall. If they do that, he will still count $8.6 million in dead money in 2025, $17.4 in 2026, but he would have cost $25 million against the cap without that designation. At the time that he signed that deal with the Niners 2 off seasons ago, he had signed a 4-year, $84 million contract, and for the price that the Niners signed him to, ended up being a very disappointing free agency acquisition for San Francisco. And you think about what the Eagles did, for instance, they let Hargrave go. They drafted Jalen Carter, who's turned into one of the best defensive players in the game. And they're paying Jalen Carter a fraction of the price of what the Niners have had to pay Javon Hargrave. The other issue with Hargrave, he is a pass rushing defensive tackle. And he still had 7 sacks in 2023, but with the Niners still running the wide 9, they've kind of gone away from run-stopping defensive tackles, and they became enamored with Hargrave coming off that 11-sack season with Philadelphia in 2022. The issue, not a good run defender. Niners defensive tackles haven't been able to stop the run. That's a problem with the wide 9. Other cut candidates here. Niners could decide to cut Malik Collins, who, again, more of a pass rushing defensive tackle as compared to a run stuffer. Defensive end Leonard Floyd, and wide receiver Deebo Samuel. I don't think they'll go that route with Deebo due to the financial implications. If they move off of Deebo, I think it will be as a trade. So you tell me, which of these cut candidates won't be on the Niners in 2025? Let me know and drop me a name. All right. Rob Iman. Not a fan of the Joe Flacco idea. Yeah, so there's some buzz that the Niners could bring in Joe Flacco as a backup to Brock Purdy. I'm not really a fan of it either, and I talked about that on the show earlier this week. What I would do, I think the Niners need to draft a quarterback day 2, day 3. And some quarterbacks who I like who could fall in that range, Will Howard out of Ohio State, Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, who Will Howard replaced because he used to go to Ohio State, and Jackson Dart, who is having a really good Senior Bowl session from some people who are there who have talked about him. Up to $12 in Super Chats. Any Super Chat that comes in, we obviously appreciate those for donating to the show. If anybody right now sends in a $50 Super Chat, I'll do a shotgun for you. And then Rob with another one here, another 5. Kyle must go running back by committee this year. Christian McCaffrey is 29, and that's old in RB years. I agree. And in a deep running back class, I know some people will make fun of Shanahan for drafting a running back because last year it was Isaac Guerendo, and in recent years he took Trey Sermon and Ty Davis-Price in the 3rd rounds. Neither of those players are with the Niners. Isaac Guerendo is, but this is a very deep running back class, even with Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton returning to Penn State. And so I think the Niners should look at running backs in the mid to late rounds because you're not sure about Christian McCaffrey, and Isaac Guerendo's always hurt, and Jordan Mason's a restricted free agent. Segment number 4, about to get underway. It'll be a mailbag. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. That's hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. How we doing on questions there, Chip? All right. Get those questions in. If you send in a super chat, you can jump the line just like that fast pass at Six Flags. Oh, Chase, what do you think about Cade Klubnik? So he's going back to Clemson.
Yeah, he's going back to school.
Yeah. Although what he did really after that Georgia game and what he did against Texas in the college football playoff, I'm like, this dude's athletic. And he doesn't have a bazooka for an arm, but he's athletic and has a strong enough arm where if he has a big year in 2025, I think that's part of the reason why he went back to school. He's like, I can improve my draft stock. And he can improve his draft stock like Drew Aller can improve their draft stock. And if they play well for their respective programs, Penn State for Aller, Clemson for Klubnik, they could be top 10 picks next year. All right, last segment, mailbag. Let's answer your questions. Yo, what's good? What's going on? Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, a mailbag. We're going to open up the floor and take questions from our subscribers and our real ones. I always like doing this because what we do wouldn't be possible without the viewers and the supporters of this program, and I always want you to have a voice on this show. Before we take your questions, I know you're going to bring some heat because all of you know ball. Hit that subscribe button. When there's Niners news out there, when they make a move, when there's some buzz, we always talk about it here on the show, in addition to giving you great draft content, great free agency content, live shows, watch parties, in-season, off-season. We do it all. Rob with the $5 super chat. Kyle Shanahan has to go running back by committee this year. Christian McCaffrey is 29 years old, and that's old in RB years. So Christian McCaffrey is going to be 29 years old next June. And I'm very concerned about the Achilles tendonitis coming off the workload that he had in 2023 when he led the NFL in touches, led the NFL in rushing yards, led the NFL in all-purpose yards with more than 2,000, and was tied for first with touchdowns with 21. Since the trade from the Panthers to the Niners, Kyle Shanahan has used him a lot, including that run to the Super Bowl, and clearly the Achilles tendonitis was the after effect of that. Then the Niners signed him to a contract extension, and he barely played this year. Didn't even score a touchdown. After 21 touchdowns a year ago, started to feel like himself coming off the bilateral Achilles tendonitis, and then he injured his knee on the snow-covered surface against the Buffalo Bills. At that age, with his injury history, I agree. Kyle Shanahan should go running back by committee and at least try to manage the carries for McCaffrey. Of course, he didn't do that once McCaffrey came back. Barely any other running back got touches, and what happened? CMC got hurt. But I would also consider doing this offseason. I know some people will joke about how Shanahan's probably going to draft a running back. He drafted Trey Sermon, Ty Davis-Price in the 3rd round. They're not on the team any longer. He took Isaac Guerrero and traded up for him in the 4th round. He has injury issues. Jordan Mason is a restricted free agent. I think the Niners have to draft a running back. This is also an extremely deep running back class, and I think that's a sneaky position of need, because you just don't know if Christian McCaffrey is ever going to be the same. Do I know that he's going to work his ass off to try to get back? For sure. But is he going to be able to hold up at that age with the mileage on the tires, given the injury history? Yeah, it's a concern moving forward for sure. Jayan, should we get rid of Deebo Samuel? So I know that a lot of people aren't going to like this, but this is the reality of it. And I love how last offseason, when I was talking about the Niners trading Deebo, people were saying, clickbait, you hate Deebo. Why do you have something out for Deebo? Niners aren't going to move him. Well, it's funny, because the Niners were trying to move him. At the very least, they looked into it, and the Niners told Deebo Samuel and his agent that he was involved in trade discussions. I always think it's better to move on from a player too early as compared to too late. And in the case of Deebo, I think the Niners missed their opportunity to trade him away for good value. A few years ago, coming off the 2021 All-Pro season, it was rumored that teams were offering a first-round pick for him. Last offseason, if you were to have traded Deebo Samuel, I think you could have gotten a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Now, though, he had the worst year of his career. Ever since he signed that contract extension, he's been a disappointment. His numbers have gone down. And last year, wasn't breaking tackles at his normal rate. Wasn't creating separation. Didn't have explosive plays. Career low in yards per carry. He still has straight line speed, but he wasn't making guys miss. And so we could talk about the Niners moving off of Deebo, but what is the value? A colleague asked me today, Chase, what do you think the Niners could get for Deebo? I said, 4th or 5th round pick? Maybe? Team ain't giving you a 3rd, especially considering the price. But he is going into the final year of his contract, and so I think for that reason, Niners hoping for a bounce back, trying to milk out the remaining juice out of this core. They're going to bring him back in 2025. Lamonte, $5 super chat. We will still never win the big game with Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0 in banana hands. Kyle Shanahan will draft a kicker and a running back. Why is Moody still on the team? Trade Kyle Shanahan ASAP, please. I know some people are down on Kyle Shanahan, but would you believe it if I told you that despite the Niners finishing the year 6-11, they were still number 3 in yards per play, number 9 on 3rd downs, and 4th in yards per game? Before Brock Purdy got injured, they were also hovering around top 10 in points per game. But yeah, they were bad on 4th downs. They were bad in the red area. I thought that Kyle Shanahan had a bad year as far as coaching, game planning, play calling, game management, having his team ready to go, having the season turn into pretty much a disappointment toward the end when you're getting blown out, dump trucked, and you can't stop anybody. But Kyle Shanahan's still one of the elite coaches in this league. And Brock Purdy, I'd give him a B- for how he performed in 2024, but think about the lack of stability. And it's really hard to produce at the quarterback spot when all of your weapons are in and out of the lineup. And there's so much instability around you. And you have bad offensive line play. And your coach isn't helping you out. And the run game isn't there. And the defense is awful. And look, the Niners in Super Bowl 58, they were a couple of plays away from winning the Super Bowl against Kansas City. But you think about what happened in that game. Christian McCaffrey fumbled on the opening drive. Niners were going to get points there. Dre Greenlaw popped his Achilles. Niners defense was dominating prior to that, shutting out Kansas City. There was the botched punt. There was a missed extra point. They didn't block Chris Jones. They didn't get the whistle in their favor. Yet they still almost won. And so I do believe that with Purdy and Shanahan, they can win. But yeah, they're going to need to stay healthy. And they're going to need to continue to add talent. Leon Sandcastle, elite name. Tight end at number 11 is a Raiders move. Don't be the Raiders. Well, it's funny that you say that because, yeah, the Raiders drafted Brock Bowers when they had Michael Mayer. But guess what? Brock Bowers was a first-team All-Pro as a rookie at tight end. Freak of a player. Of course, the Raiders need a quarterback, but Brock Bowers was still a first-team All-Pro despite not having good quarterback play. And so sometimes you need to draft the best player available because you want special players on your team. I know that offensive line, defensive line are needs, but what if they move on from George Kittle after 2025? Tight end becomes a need. So why not usher in Tyler Warren? I don't know if it's something that I'd do, but I'd be tempted. What I would do, I'd build up the trenches offensive line, defensive line, because I think the Niners desperately need to get better there. Let me know down in the comments section, which position do you want to see the Niners target in the first round of the draft? Leon Sandcastle says no to the tight end spot. Our sponsor for today's show, Prize Picks. There is one football game left. Don't miss out on the action with Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy sports app and the only DFS app that you should be using. More than 10 million active members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings, and right now you can win up to 1,000 times your money. And when you play $5, you get $50 instantly. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's daily fantasy sports made easy. You pick 2 or more players. You choose more or less on the projected stats, and you can win some big-time money. You can also withdraw your winnings, all within the Prize Picks app, and they offer MasterCard too. The big game free pick, I love the specials that Prize Picks has to offer. For instance, in the big game, all Patrick Mahomes has to do is throw for more than a half passing yard. Yeah, he's going to be able to do that. Our square for the Super Bowl, Mahomes more than a half passing yard, and Saquon Barkley just has to find the end zone, rushing or receiving. Pick more, pick less, run your game with Prize Picks, prizepicks.com/CLNS. Get $50 when you play 5. We'll put that link down below in the comment section, and it's attached to the pinned comment. Chua, what's up, brother? How should we fix the issues with our offensive line and defensive line and special teams depth? Good question here. So I think that you can get an elite offensive tackle, defensive tackle, or edge rusher at number 11. So let's say that you pick one of those positions at number 11. In the mid to late rounds, you can find some excellent interior offensive linemen. It is pretty crazy to me, given the importance that the offensive line has on a football roster, that teams don't draft centers early because they'd rather go with other positions that don't have as much depth in the draft, yet offensive line is so important. And so these really good interior offensive linemen, centers, guards, they fall to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. And so I don't think the Niners need to go, for those reasons, center or guard in the first round. Let's say they go offensive tackle first round. I'd probably go defensive tackle or edge in the second round. If they go defensive tackle edge in the first round, then you address offensive line after that. There are also some pretty good guards and tackles you can find in the 3rd round. And so there's some versatility this year, given what this draft class looks like, to address defensive line and offensive line. But the most premier players at those positions are usually snatched up pretty early at offensive tackle, edge rusher, sometimes depth as well. But there are some good defensive tackles in this class. And so left guard, center, right tackle, need to address it. Edge rusher, defensive tackle, need to address it. You can also do this in free agency. So I would draft a left guard, draft a right tackle, sign Drew Dahlman, the Falcons center, in free agency, find a defensive tackle and edge in the draft, and then you can bulk up those positions in free agency too, depending on what you do in the draft. Chris P. Bacon, nice. Would you consider trading back to the early mid-20s to get more picks this year and a first next year? I did talk about this a couple of weeks ago on X. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I had floated the idea of trading out of 11. You go into the mid to late teens, and you draft an offensive lineman there, and then you take a player like Jack Sawyer or JT Tuimalahu. I think that's how you say his name. Not sure. His other counterpart at the defensive end spot in the second round or at the end of the first round. Like, you have some possibilities there if you trade out of 11 to maybe get a late first rounder or an early second. And then let's say you have a mid first rounder, either a late first rounder or an early second. You hold on to your other early second. That's 3 picks inside the top 45. I would really like that. And I think that's a smart team building strategy right there. So yeah, I'd think about it depending on what the offer is. 21 NC Dorado. Sign DJ Jones. Will Fries at offensive guard. Trade 11th overall to Cleveland for Myles Garrett. Second round pick trade up for Donovan Jackson to play right tackle. My man, you may have just crossed off all of the boxes of what the Niners need to do this offseason, which would include a dream scenario. I have talked about this. I would sign DJ Jones, number 2 defensive tackle in run stop win rate among all players at that position. He got a 3-year, $30 million contract from the Broncos after he left the Niners. I don't think he's getting that. I think that you can get him at a more affordable price, and he's a player who can stop the run and knows the scheme, who Robert Saleh is familiar with. You bring in an offensive guard via trade or free agency, I could see that. I don't think the Browns are trading 11 for Myles Garrett. Honestly, it might take 2 ones for Myles Garrett. But we can dream about a Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa edge rusher combination. You trade that second as well. I still don't think it happens. Trade up for Donovan Jackson to play right tackle. Some good tackles in this draft class. Fossey, what's the Niners' record next year with the last place schedule? Let's go 11 wins. Having not knowing what they're going to do this offseason, let's go 11-6. Because I think there are a lot of winnable games, and we'll see what they do in free agency and in the draft. And if they crush it, yeah, they are not far away from getting back to playoff and championship contention. Give me a follow on social media, by the way, at Chase_Senior. I'm always posting about the Niners. 15,000 followers on X, nearly 36K on IG. Say what's up, and thanks for supporting the content. All right. Good live show today. Live for a little more than an hour. So we're going to dip on out of here. Thanks for tuning in. Great coverage to come all throughout the rest of the week and every single day. I also will be in New Orleans next week for Super Bowl 59. And that always gives us great opportunities to give you some more great Niners content. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks to Chip for producing the show. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. I'm Chase Senior, and I'm gone. See ya.